And a quick reminder from later on this evening on Jackpot Button Lewis 1, as you can have another opportunity to see the grand final of the biggest song contest in all of Europe, and that being the Eurovision Song Contest 2025 Grand Final, where all 26 qualified countries from the two semi-finals, and including the Big Five, including the United Kingdom, France, Germany, Spain and Italy, which one of them will get the most points and hopefully walk away with that famous glass microphone trophy, as well as getting the opportunity to host Eurovision from next year in 2026. That's the Eurovision Song Contest 2025 Grand Final from later on this evening on Jackpot Button Lewis 1 from 8 o'clock. But now here on Jackpot Button Lewis 2, we're now heading over to sunny Spain and the circuit, more specifically of the Circuit De Catalunya in Barcelona for round 4 of the Reimagined 1995 Formula 1 season, as we have highlights from this afternoon's Spanish Grand Prix, introduced by Jack Wright with live race commentary from Murray Walker in Grand Prix Formula 1. As the first European leg of this year's championship continues, the Circuit de Catalunya here in Barcelona is the scene for the Spanish Grand Prix of 1995. This is quite the challenging course, just under 3 miles in length, a good mixture of bends and a long start and finish straight for overtaking down, and that's kind of unusual for a modern circuit. Britain's Damon Hill will no doubt would like to win here again this afternoon, following an impressive wet weather drive from just a few weeks ago back at Imola in San Marino. After one of the most impressive wet weather drives so far out this season, unbelievably managing to lap the whole entire field and lead unbelievably by nearly over 3 minutes ahead of Ferrari's Gerhard Berger and former world champion back in 1992 on McLaren's Nigel Mansell. But after finishing second last year, Michael Schumacher of Benetton would like to possibly win here, as he's still yet to win his first race of this reimagined 1995 Formula 1 World Championship. And possibly could we be also seeing the likes of also the McLaren driver of Mika Hakkinen after an impressive performance also in the wet at Imola just last week? Could he possibly also be on the cards to possibly also maybe join Nigel Mansell, as this unfortunately now sadly will be his final race in his whole Formula 1 career, as he has been struggling with unfitness despite getting a podium finish from last weekend. And if the hot and sunny weather at Catalunya, Barcelona is anything to go by, we're certainly in for a sizzling day's racing as of this particular race weekend, once again as part of round 4 of the reimagined 1995 Formula 1 Grand Prix Championship. and a very good afternoon to all you racing fans out there. My name is Jack Wright, also known as Jackpot Button Lewis on YouTube, and welcome to the 4th edition of, once again, my brand new World Motorsport playthrough series, that being of Grand Prix Formula 1, and with highlights from this afternoon's Spanish Grand Prix, once again here from the Circuit De Catalunya in Barcelona in sunny Spain. And of course, as we just mentioned earlier on, as we just look out of our studio, it feels like that the heat from the circuit has literally followed us into our studio, because literally I am trying my best not to be sweating in just, of course, a pair of shorts and my very appropriately themed, of course, Michael Schumacher and Benetton Renault top, which, of course, if I have not shown you, of course, thanks to Redbubble, I managed to get this beautiful t-shirt based off his racing overalls, and of course his name, instead of the famous German beer, of course, alcohol sponsor of Bitburger there, along with Elf, and also of course the Japanese cigarette, a mild 7 there as well. And but as I said before, I can only apologise if some of you were expecting me to be a little bit more smarter, but honestly, it feels like with this particular series, the weather has been very much the same outside of the Jackpot Button Lewis Productions universe. And once again, as I said before, it is once again an absolute pleasure as always to be presenting and giving you, of course, extended coverage. Even though this is not, of course, live, we did have the race from earlier on this afternoon, but of course, if that's everything to go by, may I add, it certainly is going to be you're certainly in for a real treat, all you Formula 1 racing fans. And with that being said, of course, as we, if you might remember from just a few weeks ago, an unbelievable wet weather drive from Britain's Damon Hill for the Williams Renault team, unbelievably lapping the entire field, almost a good 6 or 7. I mean, I completely lost count. The dominance in his, of course, Williams Renault was on the scale of unlike anything I've ever seen before as of currently in this series. It just was just completely disbelieving, to say the least. Honestly, it was just amazing. And also, with that being said, another impressive second place victory for the Austrian Gerhard Berger driving for Ferrari. But the biggest shock result out of all of that had to be Britain's Nigel Mansell driving for the McLaren Mercedes team, and unbelievably, as we mentioned in the last episode, in the real life season, he didn't even do that well. I think he both retired out from the 2 races that he took part in this, of course, particular championship. And with that being said, also, we can also sadly break the unfortunate news to you that following, he's still been struggling with of course, his fitness, and he still felt really incredibly uncomfortable inside the cockpit after the impressive performance, despite that, of course, in the wet weather at Imola from just a few weeks ago. But it has been confirmed that he will be, of course, leaving the team after this particular race weekend, and then Mark Blundell will have to, of course, swap his place, going back into the first driver spot. And also, with that being said, we have also got another update of other drivers also that are also being substituted as of this race weekend. We can also clarify that to you as of right now. Japanese Aguri Suzuki for Ligier Mugen Honda has now been replaced by local British driver, that being Martin Brundle, who for some of you that might not know is from Kings Lynn originally, and he's, of course, over the last few years as competing in Formula 1, he's yet to win a Grand Prix, but we do know that one of his best results that he has had in his career so far is for some impressive podium finishes, as we do know that he managed to get a few podiums. As we quickly have a look at his racing record from just back in, I think it was 1990. 3, I think it was. If I can just have a look here. There we go. I'm just making sure that I get the right year up for all of you, that I can just remind you of where he was. He was driving for Ligier in 1993, and he managed unbelievably to get a podium in the for the French manufacturer. And also, as well as that, he's also raced with Benetton since the year of 1992, and just last year he also drove for McLaren as well, and unbelievably he managed to get oh, there we go, as I can clarify that he managed to get 5 podiums back in 1992 alongside of course Germany's Michael Schumacher, which was his official second year in the sport, as of before he when he won his first Grand Prix at the Belgian Grand Prix in Spa-Francorchamps. And but it does say here that he managed to get 5 podiums and managed to finish 6 overall in the Drivers' Championship back in 1992 for the Camel Benetton Ford team. Of course, that was the previous engine supplier for the team as of currently this year, but they're now running Renault engines. But it does say here that he didn't manage to get as many podiums from last year, but he still managed to get 2, and he managed to finish in 7th in the Drivers' Championship from last year. But we can confirm that he is, of course, driving and taking over Aguri Suzuki's place for the remainder of the season, and his driver number is number 25. And even though that he may have, of course, maybe one of because the Ligier team are one of the midfield teams, not exactly as fast like the likes of Jordan and also possibly McLaren, even though they have had some fortunate of course results over the last few races due to other of the faster of course front runners taking pit stops, but a very an unusual time. So that's how they've managed to make up for that. Of course, they're in of course in their deficit in performance among the front runners. So, but there we go, everybody. I can confirm that after once again this race, Nigel Mansell will officially retire from competitive racing. Of course, following on, I know that a few years ago that he also took a chance to race in the IndyCar series back in 1993, and he did particularly do well, actually, to my knowledge. I remember it very, very well. That's where, of course, Murray Walker was saying to me just before we, of course, started today's program. But that's all of the driver substitute updates for this particular round. And we do know that, unfortunately, the Simtech Ford team are facing a dire situation regarding their future in the sport at the moment. They are really struggling, not just because of their pace in the sport, but also they have been really struggling with their recent form as a team, and they could be under threat of course of bankruptcy, despite even though getting big sponsors such as Music Television and also XTC and loads of other sponsors, as it's saying here. Initially, this is what it said here, that MTV Europe sponsorship commitment initially was being reduced from last year, for this year also, since they were introduced initially the year before, but they still remain title sponsors to the team, and rather than money, MTV had paid with airtime for their television channel, and it was then sold to Simtech to other sponsors for them to show commercials to promote the team also as well. And even though that they've got Cosworth power and a more up-to-date 4ED engine, along with former gearboxes supplied by Benetton, believe it or not, as surprising as it sounds, we do know that they've really been struggling. They've been lapped multiple times, of course, through the last few races, but through the initial few years in the and now it's almost coming up to nearly 18 months since the team have been in existence. They've unbelievably fell into debt quite a lot, and it's nearing almost £6 million, which is quite unbelievable. And they've been struggling with reliability, especially in qualifying, with their gearboxes, as well as their engine being a lot more slower than the other, of course, teams, as they could have liked. But with that being said, also there is, of course, a talk that initially that with the CEO of Formula One Management, Bernie Ecclestone, had, of course, agreed that the team entered the championship intending to compete in 16 of the races, as they, of course, it was extended to 17 as of this year. But there was negotiations with potential backers and sponsors that they've been trying to do. Unfortunately, have failed towards Hideki Noda, who was also a possible driver to possibly stand in for the likes of both Jos Verstappen and Mimo Sciattarella, but he was severely affected by the Kobe earthquake, as we had from earlier on in this season, hence why that the Pacific Grand Prix has now been rescheduled towards the end of the season, and of course it's going to happen also from later on this year in October. But it's looking more likely that towards the next Grand Prix in Monaco, in Monte Carlo, they could be facing bankruptcy, and it's more likely that they'll have no choice but to pull out of the season following this unfortunate rise in debt of this particular manufacturer and constructor in this year's Formula One World Championship season. But anyway, of course, sorry for going off topic there, but we wanted to give you an update on that since the last time we were here with you. And also, we can also confirm, going back to before we get more closer to showing you a full extended highlights of this afternoon's Spanish Grand Prix, let's quickly remind you of the current Drivers' and Constructors' Championship point tables at the moment. And we start with the Drivers' Championship, and have currently, following the impressive victory in the wet weather conditions at Imola from a few weeks ago, Damon Hill for Williams-Renault is currently leading the Drivers' Championship with 14 points. Second is Benetton, Renault and fellow British driver, that being Johnny Herbert with 13 points. Third, is Austrian's Gerhard Berger for Ferrari with 12. David Coulthard, after getting his points reinstated after being disqualified from the first race at Interlagos, Brazil, is in fourth place with 10 points. Mark Blundell, even though he hasn't been racing again since Nigel Mansell has been in his place for another year, of course not year, but another race weekend as it were, with 9 points currently. He is in fifth. Sixth is Rubens Barrichello for the Jordan Peugeot team with 5 points. Seventh is Michael Schumacher, also tied with Nigel Mansell, who got an impressive third place and 4 precious points in the Drivers' Championship, and they're both tied for seventh, both with, once again, with 4 points. And John Alesi is in ninth with 2 points, also tied with an impressive performance in the points by Japanese driver Taki Inoue for the Footwork Heart team, also with 2 points. And rounding up the top 10 is Austrian Karl Wendlinger, who has still got 1 singular point at the moment in his Sauber Ford. And with now that covering the drivers, let's have a quick look at the Constructors' Championship so far. And unbelievably, following that impressive race victory, another, of course, victory to the Williams-Renault team. They are now unbelievably tied for points against Ferrari at the moment, as they both have 14 points at the moment. And in third place, or more specifically, of course, is Benetton Renault. Also, once again, tied with McLaren Mercedes, as they both share also 13 points at the moment. And then shortly after that, we also have in fifth place Jordan Peugeot with also 5 points, as they have yet to have scored any points from the last few races. Seventh is Sauber Ford with 2 points, also tied with Footwork Hart, as they get their first points of the championship from the last round of this season. And also for the first time, also thanks to Yukio Katayama, even though he finished out of the Drivers' Championship in 12th, he has still managed to get that all-important 1 point for the Tyrrell Yamaha team, as they are currently at the bottom in 9th place, currently in the Constructors' Championship. So there you go, everybody. That is another, of course, clarification of the current drivers and constructors championships so far, as we reach the 4th round of this year's 1995 Reimagined FIA Formula 1 World Championship, and more specifically the 1995, of course, Grand Prix Marlboro de España, and that more specifically translates to the 1995 Marlboro Spanish Grand Prix, here from the Circuit De Catalunya in Barcelona, Spain. And we also can remind you that unbelievably we have seen another impressive performance from the qualifying sessions. But before we get to that, we also can remind you that with the drivers of, as it says here, of course, and it does say about what happened in the real life race, but we are going to try and avoid that just for the immersion of this series. But following, as I said before, the 2 difficult races that he's had so far, despite getting a podium in the last race, it has been confirmed, as I said, Nigel Mansell will be leaving the McLaren team after this race and this race weekend. And also, this is going to, I think for the first time, it does say here that also we could possibly see a, we've yet to have a 1-2 finish from one of the, of course, teams so far in this championship. But we could actually might see that happen again, as before we quickly have a look on the qualifying results. Unbelievably, in real life, we did actually find out that we've had, there's been some problems following the starting lights, which we have had at the beginning of every race or so. We haven't got the 5 red lights, as you see, as of currently now in Formula 1 as of this year of 2025. But it also does say we haven't got much information here on when it comes to the practice, but we do know that it was there was loads of course problems regarding tyre wear because of how hot the track has been, and it's made it a bit more slower than usual, of course, or make that, sorry, my apologies, faster, but it's been a little bit more, of course, inconvenient following the pure slick tyres that the cars have, and they've been struggling for grip. Of course, or just literally pushing the cars that hard, since it is such a technical circuit for the qualifying. But we can also do confirm that unbelievably that another impressive 1-2 of course start for both John Alesi, Frenchman for Ferrari, and also Austrians Gerhard Berger will start on pole and in second for the start of this of course afternoon's Spanish Grand Prix from earlier on this over today. And also as well, the Williams team have also had another impressive qualifying third and fourth, and But unbelievably, the Benettons did struggle slightly due to the hot weather, and also unfortunately, even though he is still yet to win a race, he has still managed to get a podium, finishing third back in Brazil. That being Michael Schumacher, he can only manage 10th place. But if he can manage to, of course, time his pit stops right, I think he could possibly might stand in with a chance of getting on the podium, or dare I say it, he might also have the opportunity to win his first race of this year's championship. But honestly, guys, I honestly thought there was a lot more that we could find of information here. But we do know that the race distance of this particular race is 65 laps, which translates into 307.114 kilometers, and just under 3 miles is the course length. And there's been an impressive attendance of over 53,000 people attending this race weekend, and honestly, they are going to, for all the fans that were there from earlier on this afternoon, they are certainly were in for a real treat with this particular race. And well, with that being said, I think it's time for us to get straight on with, of course, highlights of this afternoon's Spanish Grand Prix. Once again here from the Circuit De Catalunya here in Barcelona, Spain. And while I head over to the commentary box to join my, of course, fellow, of course, commentating partner, that being the legendary voice himself, Murray Walker, here is the full starting grid for, once again, round 4 of the Reimagined 1995 FIA Formula 1 World Championship, with the 1995 Grand Prix Marlboro de España, and more specifically the 1995 Marlboro Spanish Grand Prix, here from, once again, Catalunya in Barcelona, once again as round 4 of this year's 1995 Reimagined Formula 1 season. Here is the starting grid for round 4 of the 1995 FIA Formula 1 World Championship with the Spanish Grand Prix. And starting on pole position, an impressive 1-2 start for the Ferraris of Frenchmen John Alesi and Gerhard Berger. Third are an impressive 3-4 of the Williams drivers of David Coulthard and Damon Hill. Fifth is Eddie Irvine in the Jordan Peugeot, with 6, Johnny Herbert in the Benetton. 7th is Rubens Barrichello with Mika Hakkinen in the McLaren. And 9th is his teammate Nigel Mansell. 10th is Michael Schumacher of the second of the Benettons, and making his impressive debut in 11th is Britain's Martin Brundle, with Heinz-Harald Frentzen in 12th in the Sauber. 13th is Mika Salo with Gianni Morbidelli in 14th. Parnis is in 16th, with Jos Verstappen in 16th of the first of the Simtech Fords. 17th is Katayama with Taki Inoue in 18th. 19th is Pierluigi Martini with 20th Carl Wendiger. 21st is Luca Badoa with Sciattarella in 22nd. 23rd, Andrea Montemini. 24th is his French teammate for the Pacific Ford of Bertrand Gachot. 25th is Roberto Marino, and his 40-course teammate of Brazilian Pedro Diniz is in 26th and last place.
Round 4 of the 1995 World Championship here in Spain.
FIA Formula 1 World Championship. Round 4. The 1995 Gran Premio Marlboro de España. From the Circuit de Catalunya in Barcelona. And now, to take you through all 65 laps of this afternoon's 1995 Spanish Grand Prix, here from the Circuit de Catalunya here in Barcelona, it's now time to hand you over to our official race commentators. Of first Jack Wright, and then shortly followed by the legendary voice of Formula One himself, Murray Walker. Well, as the heat haze rises into the air here in a very hot and sunny Barcelona, here of course at the Circuit de Catalunya for the Spanish Grand Prix. An impressive once again 1-2 start for the Ferraris of Jean Alesi and Gerhard Berger, and both the Williams Renault drivers of David Coulthard and Damon Hill, and possibly the likes of even Eddie Irvine in his Jordan Peugeot, who will get off their grid slots and will have a very interesting start towards the first corner. It's time to find out as we are live and with extended coverage here on Jackpot Button Lewis Productions. It's time for round 4 of the 1995 FIA Formula One World Championship with the 1995 Marlboro Spanish Grand Prix. That was a superb start there from Michael Schumacher, Murray, and I think Martin Brundle nearly rear-ended him there. But he couldn't have had a better start. Ooh! And both the McLaren Mercedes drivers of Hakkinen and Mansell are fighting for both 9th and 8th at the moment. And they've hit each other again! That is unbelievable! I can't believe they've actually done that on the first lap!
9. Nigel Mansell, and the gap is closing. 10. Michael Schumacher. 11. Martin Brundle.
That Benetton is so quick through those corners. The McLarens are really under threat here. My goodness!
He's right up tight behind him, pushing hard.
They both try to block Schumacher, which they do, and they nearly touch going through the first corner.
It's not enough to be lucky. You've got to be good. And he is that.
That was almost reminiscent of Nigel Mansell, actually, when he was driving for Williams. With the late Ayrton Senna driving for McLaren, and they were both wheel to wheel.
In first place, Gerhard Berger. In second position, Jean Alesi. Third, Damon Hill. In fourth, David Coulthard. In fifth place, Johnny Herbert. Sixth, Rubens Barrichello.
An Austrian Gerhard Berger manages to take the lead from his French teammate Jean Alesi in the Ferrari. And Schumacher is really putting on the pressure on the former 1992 world champion. He's literally in his slipstream for a second lap running. But somehow Mansell is trying to find some speed. This is quite unbelievable here, Murray, to witness this. How is he keep...
10. Michael Schumacher. 11. Olivier Panis.
My apologies.
Underneath the rear wing of the car in front.
As I just said there, Murray, and I did get it wrong because Mansell must be in...
Shedding bucket. Lots of adrenaline in that car.
He is currently in 8th place at the moment, but Häkkinen is under real pressure to hold off Michael Schumacher here as Berger sets the fastest lap of 1 minute, 29.345 hundredths of a second after the second lap out of 65 here at Catalunya in Barcelona for this afternoon's Spanish Grand Prix.
Race order. First, Gerhard Berger. In second place, John Alesi. In third, Damon Hill. In fourth position, David Coulthard. Sensational! Fifth, Johnny Herbert. In sixth position, Rubens Barrichello.
He's going for a move and he made it stick.
He forces his way through.
That was a bold overtake there from Schumacher on Häkkinen, and he just managed to do it, going over those curves, and it's a good job he didn't go off onto the grass, because the car literally almost took off into the air there, as Schumacher was trying to attempt that overtake there.
Eddie Irvine. It's not enough to be lucky. You've got to be good. And he is that. 9. Michael Schumacher. 10. Mika Häkkinen.
Well, it looks like Nigel Mansell has managed to eke out a relatively small gap from Northern Irishman Eddie Irvine, and I feel like Schumacher's going to comfortably pass him,
Closing the gap.
which he does,
Spectacular overtaking there.
right down the start-finish straight. And now he's caught up back to Nigel Mansell, currently in 7th. And there's a just under 9.5 seconds gap.
In first place, Gerhard Berger. Second, John Alesi. In third position, David Coulthard. In fourth place, Damon Hill. In fifth, Johnny Herbert. In sixth position, Rubens Barrichello.
So once again, current race leader of Austrian Gerhard Berger at the moment.
He really loves these kind of conditions.
Well, even though he didn't do that well in qualifying due to the very hot air and on the track,
He's in the slipstream of the car in front.
he's really...
Nigel Mansell. 8. Michael Schumacher. Superb! That's moved him up a place.
And just like he did with Mika Häkkinen, he overtakes into the first corner again and now takes 7th position.
Definitely gaining.
But Mansell is right underneath his rear wing as he went wide just slightly on that previous few corners. But Schumacher, in no way he would want to let him pass now. But it's been a brilliant drive so far.
Gerhard Berger. John Alesi. David Coulthard. Damon Hill.
From the Germans so far as Berger and Alesi stay in 1st and 2nd. Coulthard stays in 3rd, Hill in 4th, Herbert 5th, And Rubens Barrichello in his Jordan Peugeot is 6. And Schumacher is just under 2 seconds.
He must be shedding buckets of adrenaline in that car.
To catch up with the Brazilian as of this moment. Well, what a fascinating start we've had to this afternoon's 1995 Marlboro Spanish Grand Prix.
7. Michael Schumacher. 8. Nigel Mansell.
It looks like I think... Yes, as you just said there, Murray, it looks like he's starting to catch up with back markers. And I think that could be... It's difficult to see from our cameras here. I don't think that is a McLaren, but...
Andy's gained a lot of time now.
It's really started to slow down. Barrichello. Oh no, I think that's... Is that Hill? I think...
Gerhard Berger. David Coulthard. Johnny Herbert. Jean Alesi.
No, my mistake. I've...
Really right on the edge, pushing it to the limit all the time.
No, I was right there. My apologies, everyone. I think that was Hill. And he's also right up his slipstream, Rubens Barrichello, as well as Schumacher. All under just half a second of each other. Well, Schumacher knows he's got the faster car, so he's only just trying to find the gap. And he could possibly overtake not just both Barrichello, but also Hill as well. But there he goes.
7. Michael Schumacher. He's closing the gap. Ouch! He's up into the points now.
It's not that painful, Murray. But now he's into 6th place. And now with his championship rival, Britain's Damon Hill in his Williams, he's only just marginally ahead.
He's in the slipstream of the car in front.
How many more times are you going to say that this afternoon, Murray? Whoa!
Look at that!
And I think Barrichello, in all of that battle between Schumacher and Hill, tried to overtake Schumacher, but...
They're really right on the edge, pushing it to the limit all the time.
I think they've just banged wheels.
Order. Gerhard Berger. David Coulthard. Johnny Herbert. Jean Alesi.
We apologise if you're hearing something in the background. That is a jet just flying over the track. But look at this with Damon Hill.
Closing the gap. You can see visually just how small the gap is. He forces his way through.
And somehow he manages to get past Damon Hill. Down once again the start-finish straight. And now Michael Schumacher is into 5th position. And holding on currently to 2 points
The gap is increasing.
in the Drivers' World Championship as Johnny Herbert sets the new fastest lap of 1 minute 29.118 hundredths of a second. And he looks like he could be next as once again his German teammate, that being Schumacher, is now just ahead as he's now just catching up to some back markers. No, he's still in third at the moment, but Alesi is not far away from him, and neither is Schumacher. He's found some real blistering pace in his Benetton as we reach lap 11 of this afternoon's Spanish Grand Prix out of 65 laps.
Race order: Gerhard Berger, David Coulthard, Johnny Herbert, Jean Alesi.
He is literally almost at top speed.
And the gap is closing.
Going through these long, winding left and right-handers. Even though the Ferrari drivers did have a good start, they are now starting, unfortunately, to lose a bit of pace to the Williams and Benetton cars. As Alesi's now stuck behind one of the 40 Fords. I think that's of Brazilian Roberto Marino, and he makes contact. I think there could be a warning there for Moreno. Or that could have been Diniz, because both drivers are Brazilian. There was a blue flag waved by the marshals just now, telling him to get out the way, which I can honestly tell that Diniz was very reluctant to let him pass there. And he effortlessly gets past Moreno. Just goes onto the grass. He just, I think, mistimed. He was trying to go onto the curb there to try and cut the apex of that corner. He's dropped back a little, but he's still maintaining.
Gerhard Berger, David Coulthard, Johnny Herbert, Jean Alesi.
A 1.5 second gap to Alesi as he catches up with Schiattarelli's Simtek. There's been a blue flag from the marshals telling him to let him pass, otherwise he could get a penalty. And of course the difference in pace is just that Simtek is no match for the outright forward pace of that Benetton Renault as he approaches Bertrand Gachot in his Pacific.
This young man really is a superlative driver. The gap is growing.
Well, like you said earlier on, Murray, this year, Michael Schumacher, despite not being in the points since the last race, and may even I add also in Argentina as well. Oh! And I think that was, I think that could have been Olivier Panis there in the Ligier. He might have had a coming together with Alesi there. But that gave Schumacher another chance to catch up. He currently, once again, is in 5th place. As we are about to reach a quarter of the race distance of this afternoon's 1995 Spanish Grand Prix here at Catalunya.
Gerhard Berger, David Coulthard, Johnny Herbert, Jean Alesi.
I think he's going for another move.
Wonderful. Spectacular overtaking there.
And for a third time in succession as of this afternoon,
And the gap is closing.
he overtakes another driver on the very same first corner. That being, I think it's the 11th corner on this circuit. And now he's up to 4th position.
You've got to be good. And he is that.
You're absolutely right there, Murray. It was quite a brave overtake there. But he did have enough space to get past him going into that first corner, and he's been using that corner to his full advantage. And not to mention having max downforce on his car to try and get the most grip while going through each of these individual corners. He's just stuck behind Pierluigi Martini's Minardi, who just goes past.
The gap is growing.
And manages to get out of the way. There was a blue flag waved at him.
That's powerful acceleration there.
Well, he's literally got his foot on the accelerator pedal here, Murray. And now he's hunting down
He's losing ground.
for the moment, Murray, but with this blistering pace so far,
Race order. Gerhard Berger, David Coulthard, Johnny Herbert, Michael Schumacher.
Schumacher is closing the gap on his British teammate of Johnny Herbert, who is currently holding on to a precious 3rd place.
He must be shedding buckets of adrenaline in that car. He's closing the gap.
Well, I don't think it might just be adrenaline he's shedding. I think he may be fairly hot in that cockpit because of how warm the air temperature has been this afternoon at the circuit and even the track.
He's definitely gaining.
It's edging almost towards 26 Celsius. And for that time of year, we've had some very hot weather here in Spain, which I know has been a bit inconvenient for the drivers, but we do know that they have drinks bottles systems also in the car to cool them down whenever they need to stop them being dehydrated. And Schumacher is about to approach Dutchman Jos Verstappen in his Simtek, who he overtakes with no problem. And currently, just under 10 seconds.
David Coulthard, Johnny Herbert, Michael Schumacher.
Schumacher is to Gerhard Berger.
It's closing.
But David Coulthard is right near to Berger and could possibly overtake him, as he's just under a few hundredths of a second as of currently. And the gap drops down to 6.5 seconds for Schumacher. Once again catching his teammate Johnny Herbert. As Berger starts lap 16 out of 65, as we have just gone over a quarter of the race distance in this afternoon's Spanish Grand Prix here from Catalunya, Barcelona.
And he's gained a lot of time there.
Well, he's really starting to find The ideal racing line, as you can see on your screens from our on-screen graphic. And Coulthard has overtaken Berger.
He's closing the gap.
As we have a new race leader of Scotsman David Coulthard, and he's also set a brand new fastest lap of 1 minute 28.978 seconds.
They're really right on the edge, pushing it to the limit all the time.
Well, Schumacher,
He's definitely gaining.
he's really...
Race order. David Coulthard, Gerhard Berger, Johnny Herbert, Michael Schumacher.
He's really trying to get as much out of his Benetton Renault car as possible. But this has been a brilliant last few laps drive from the German here. And I think he could fancy
And the gap is closing.
his chances this afternoon being on the podium. The last time was right at the beginning of the season in Interlagos, Brazil, when he finished third. He initially was disqualified, but then that got overturned just a few weeks ago.
He's closing the gap.
It looks like he's starting to catch up with his teammate now. Just under 2.5 seconds. And Johnny Herbert has now moved up to second place. Schumacher's just got caught by some back markers. Past Cassio's Pacific again.
These kind of conditions.
Well, even though the sun is out and the weather is quite fine, it's still very hot at the moment. As he overtakes Taki Inoue's footwork. Oh, and he's gone wide! Oh, that was close!
Race order. David Coulthard, Johnny Herbert, Gerhard Berger, Michael Schumacher.
Well, I don't know what happened there. I think he had a little lapse of concentration. But he went slightly wide onto the grass. And that's past, I think, Martin Brundle's Ligier. I bet that was completely unintentional there from Schumacher. I think his tyres are starting to wear slightly heavily. With 46 laps remaining of this afternoon's Spanish Grand Prix, Coulthard is in, once again leading by 5 seconds, and currently on lap 19 out of 65. But he's really caught up with Gerhard Berger, and now he's just under a second.
It's not enough to be lucky. You've got to be good. And he is that. He's definitely gaining.
He's really going for it here, Murray. And he's not just relying on luck. This has been some very impressive driving skills from the young German. He was very quick through there, and he's got him.
That's moved him up a place. And the gap is closing.
Oh, and he's also caught up with one of the 40 course Fords again. He did go wide, but he's managed to get back on the racing line and just avoid going off onto the grass. Now Schumacher is in third place.
David Coulthard, Johnny Herbert, Michael Schumacher, Gerhard Berger.
Well, we've just also heard from our producers, according to the race engineer Michael Schumacher, he's going to be coming in on the next few laps here for his first pit stop. And he'll be on lap 22. The Spanish crowd are really in fine voice this afternoon. And even though there are not any Spanish drivers... How many more times are you saying that this afternoon, Murray? Well, like I just said, there's not been any Spanish drivers in this year's championship, but we know that there's a fine voice of the likes of Benetton and Williams fans in the stands. It's been a sellout crowd of over 53,000 people attending the whole race weekend, which I don't think has ever been achieved before in the whole history of this circuit hosting the Spanish Grand Prix, as it first did back in 1991. Schumacher comfortably passes. I think that was Mika Salo's Tyrrell.
Race order: David Coulthard, Johnny Herbert, Michael Schumacher, Gerhard Berger.
Well, he's about to approach his teammate, Michael. I think a few drivers are also will be heading into the pits soon for their first pit stops.
This young man really is a superlative driver.
Well, like you said earlier on, Murray, without sounding too repetitive, we have seen some amazing driving style from the young German driver. And I think he stands a real good chance of being on the podium this afternoon. If he keeps this pace up, I think he could possibly win it. But it's still early doors as of yet, as he passes once again Pedro Diniz, and coming up to, I think that's Gianni Morbidelli in his footwork. And Coulthard sets a new fastest lap of 1 minute 28.978. Well, I think actually that that lap record has already stayed on for the last few laps. As Coulthard starts lap 23. Out of 65 of the 1995 Spanish Grand Prix.
Johnny Herbert, Michael Schumacher, Gerhard Berger.
Well, he was supposed to come in. I think he must have missed the call.
He must be shedding buckets of adrenaline in that car.
But we have heard from Schumacher, he has confirmed he is going to be pitting at the end of this lap. Now Schumacher needs a good pit stop here. Luckily, no drivers haven't hit him as much. That being previously earlier on with Rubens Barrichello, they did bang wheels, but luckily the suspension didn't, surprisingly, in the slightest get damaged. In he comes for his first pit stop of this afternoon's Spanish Grand Prix.
Big is increasing.
He was almost low on fuel there, but that was a good call there for him to come out
That's putting down a place.
or come in just at that same time. He's got some fresh tyres and another top up of fuel, and even though he's dropped back down to 5th, and even though that was an 11 point,
Not enough to be lucky. You've got to be good. And he is that. Race order. David Coulthard, Johnny Herbert, Gerhard Berger, Jean Alesi.
an 11.9 I think pit stop time that has managed Coulthard to get a bit further away there, but there's only a little bit of damage on his rear wing, but it weren't enough to change it, so I think he could get away with it. So he's kept the rear wing that he's got because it's just marginally damaged. But Schumacher is back on the charge to try and regain.
And he's gained a lot of time there.
Hopefully, third place. Nigel Mansell's now in the top 6 at the moment in the McLaren. And just under 3 seconds gap, Michael is to Jean Alesi in this Ferrari.
This young man really is a superlative driver.
Are you just going to keep saying that all this afternoon, Murray? I'm not about you, but
And the gap is closing.
surely there are
David Coulthard, Johnny Herbert, Gerhard Berger, Jean Alesi.
other young drivers that can be just as superlative as you just said there. Schumacher comfortably passes. Harness in his Ligier.
He's closing the gap.
He's still closing the gap and nearly just under a second now to the Ferrari of Alesi. Alesi is quite vulnerable at the moment. That prancing horse is starting to lose its gallop. Despite it being the only V12 powered car out of all of the field in this season, it sadly, I think, has affected the weight of the car, so it's not as light and as quick as the Benetton is.
He must be shedding buckets of adrenaline in that car.
Well, his heart must be pounding though, because he is really almost trying to psych out Alesi, and he's just gone past.
Exceptional. And the gap is closing.
And Schumacher regains 4th place.
Race order. David Coulthard, Johnny Herbert, Gerhard Berger, Michael Schumacher.
And now he's
Definitely gaining.
on the hunt for Gerhard Berger's Ferrari now in 3rd. Well, there's no sign of this hot and quite...
Andy's gained a lot of time now.
sizzling, of course, I was going to say, make that sunshine here at the Circuit de Catalunya here in Barcelona. We couldn't have had more better weather conditions for this afternoon's Spanish Grand Prix.
He really loves these kind of conditions.
And that's past Luca Badoa's Minardi.
The gap is closing.
And Coulthard is unbelievably nearly 50 seconds ahead of Schumacher following his earlier pit stop. I don't know if Coulthard may have already pitted. But we are nearly approaching halfway.
Race order. David Coulthard, Johnny Herbert, Gerhard Berger, Michael Schumacher. He's closing the gap.
Through this afternoon's Spanish Grand Prix. And that's past Montemini in his Pacific again. Oh, and he nearly brushes the grass near the curbs.
He's definitely gaining.
Coming out of the final corner. And he overtakes a Simtek. And as well as I was going to say another Minardi, but no, that's a Tyrrell Yamaha of Yukio Katayama.
Right on the edge, pushing it to the limit all the time. And the gap is closing.
Well, he's really starting to find his stride here, Murray. And he's now really up the rear wing of Berger's Ferrari. Oh, and he nearly almost attempts an overtake. He is looking very slow there. He's going for him. Oh!
And he's gained a lot of time now.
Berger just did enough to hold him off, but he can't keep him held back for much longer now, surely. No! Has he? Oh, he's just managed just to eke out one of the tightest margins.
David Coulthard, Johnny Herbert, Gerhard Berger, Michael Schumacher.
Schumacher is weaving this way and that way. Berger is trying his best to not let him pass, but I don't think he's going to do enough there.
Right up tight behind him, pushing hard. Unbelievable. That was almost certainly a collision there. They're really right on the edge, pushing it to the limit all the time.
Well, they really were right on the edge there, and it looked like, I think, Berger just couldn't stop in time, and he almost done an Ayrton Senna move there. And he just collided with Schumacher there, but it's amazing how he's still going in his Ferrari, despite giving up
The gap is growing.
third place to Michael Schumacher once again. Past Martin Brundle again in his Ligier Mugen Honda. And now 30 seconds gap between him.
And the gap is closing.
And now it's dropped down to 25 seconds of his British teammate Johnny Herbert. A real hard charge we are starting to see here. There's some real quick pace Schumacher has here. Are we about to see?
To be lucky, you've got to be good. And he is that. Race order. David Coulthard, Johnny Herbert, Michael Schumacher, Nigel Mansell.
Coulthard has set another fastest lap of 1 minute 28.715 seconds. And that time gap is just going down lower and lower as this lap goes on. Schumacher is pushing himself more than any ever.
He's closing the gap.
You can see how much he really wants to win this afternoon. And it would be amazing if his teammate Johnny Herbert can also stay there, because Benetton Renault have yet to have got a 1-2 finish or get both drivers on the podium as of so far this season.
And he's gained a lot of time there.
Michael has really found his stride here. The car has been set up almost perfectly for this afternoon's race. He's just been held back by, I think that's Taki Inoue in the footwork, nearly going wide onto the grass.
He must be shedding buckets of adrenaline in that car.
But he does keep the car under control and still on the tarmac.
Race order. David Coulthard, Johnny Herbert, Michael Schumacher, Gerhard Berger.
And David Coulthard stops, starts, I mean to say. I've got a loss of words here. He starts lap 33.
And he's gained a lot of time there.
And Herbert has just pitted.
Upper position.
That means that now Coulthard is in... Schumacher is in second place, and now he can catch up with Coulthard. Well, I knew that the pit stop that Schumacher had earlier on, I think he was trying to attempt an undercut in case he managed to catch up with Coulthard. He's managed to maintain a gap, because you normally would lose about 25 seconds, including the pit stop while going into the pit lane. So, I think Schumacher can be a real threat to Coulthard
To be lucky, you've got to be good. And he is that.
as we enter the second half of this afternoon's 1995 Spanish Grand Prix here from Catalonia. And now it's dropped down to 39 seconds. The pace of the German is just been... He's on a...
David Coulthard, Michael Schumacher, Johnny Herbert, Gerhard Berger.
He's literally on another level.
The gap is increasing.
But Schumacher is really being consistent with these lap times, as it's now dropped down to 29.549 hundredths of a second. I think if Schumacher keeps driving the way he is at the moment, he should fancy his chances of taking the lead of this afternoon's Spanish Grand Prix here, Murray. He couldn't be in a more better position. Oh, he did take too much carbon onto the grass. He does keep the car under control. Oh, and he's done it again.
He must be shedding buckets of adrenaline in that car.
I don't think I've seen Schumacher drive on another level like this. Oh, and he nearly goes wide into the first corner at Elf. Round the Repsol corner.
Bit off the pace there.
Slightly Murray, but I think he's only just trying to...
Race order. David Coulthard, Michael Schumacher, Gerhard Berger, Johnny Herbert. He's losing ground.
Nigel Mansell's in 5th place, and even Carl Wendlinger in the Sauber is also a lap behind in 6th place at the moment.
He's closing the gap. He's taken the lead.
And because, unbelievably, David Coulthard has just pitted, that now means Michael Schumacher is the new race leader.
Conditions.
Well, these conditions are really, really suiting Michael Schumacher, as he couldn't have timed that any better. Coulthard has paid the price and loses the lead. And once again, Michael Schumacher from Germany is the new race leader of this afternoon's Spanish Grand Prix here from Catalonia in Barcelona. He's just about to catch up, I think, there with Damon Hill, who I think pitted earlier on. But no, Schumacher tries to stay in Hill slipstream.
Schumacher, David Coulthard, Gerhard Berger, Nigel Mansell.
Well, since he's now leading, since he has now unbelievably got a few seconds lead, he can now be in a very comfortable position. And he's now, as we see here on the graphic, he's now unbelievably 24 seconds ahead.
It's not enough to be lucky, you've got to be good. And he is that.
Well, even though Coulthard should have come in a bit more sooner there, I think he would be a little bit annoyed with that, letting Schumacher past quite easily to take the lead of this afternoon's Grand Prix race. But this is the first time in this series we've actually now seen a driver actually take the lead of the Grand Prix, while the previous driver who was leading had just pitted the lap before. I think that was Heinz-Harald Frentzen, fellow German in the Sauber Ford, just rejoining the race.
Schumacher, David Coulthard, Gerhard Berger, Nigel Mansell.
Oh!
He must be shedding buckets of adrenaline in that car.
That looked a bit awkward there, trying to overtake. I think that was Parnis's Ligier. But that is unbelievable. Nigel Mansell is now moved up to 3rd place in his McLaren Mercedes for a 2nd race in succession. Coulthard is dropped down to 4th. Schumacher's nowhere near the fastest lap though. He's still a few seconds behind as he starts lap 39 out of 65 here at Catalonia. And Schumacher approaches a slow, unbelievable, no way! Nigel Mansell is currently in 2nd place. And he's now, unbelievably, Schumacher a minute ahead of him.
These kind of conditions. Race order. Michael Schumacher, Nigel Mansell, Carl Wendlinger, Gerhard Berger.
And because of Gerhard Berger, I think pitting, that has unbelievably made Carl Wendlinger in the Sauber Ford take 3rd place. This has been another unpredictable race here if I ever seen. And Michael Schumacher is about to, since he's already drove with blistering pace, the tyres are unbelievably starting to grain. And we've heard that Schumacher's going to come in for one more pit stop. It was relatively slow, but that was because of fuel. I think he will be fine since he had half a tank, but he could be fueled to the end of the race here. That's depending on what his fuel gauge will say when he comes in. And we've been told by his race engineer he'll come in on lap 44.
He must be shedding buckets of adrenaline in that car.
As 24 laps are remaining of this afternoon's 1995 Spanish Grand Prix here from Barcelona in Catalunya.
Race order. Michael Schumacher, Nigel Mansell, Carl Wendlinger, Gerhard Berger.
Well, I think especially with fellow Austrian, as we said there, Carl Wendlinger, he must have pitted earlier on while Gerhard Berger was pitting as well. It's just absolutely spellbinding to see the Swiss manufacturer actually unbelievably having a contention to race. Not exactly with the forerunners, sorry, but also trying to almost match similar pace with the McLaren Mercedes team. And he comfortably...
Really right on the edge, pushing it to the limit all the time.
Well, I don't think he is pushing as much as he was now earlier. I think he can relax a little, but not too much. But he's in a very comfortable position, Michael, here. And if he keeps this up, he could be on his way to winning his first race of this year's Reimagined 1995 F1 season. After missing out on points in the last two races.
Race order: Michael Schumacher, Nigel Mansell, Carl Wendlinger, Gerhard Berger.
And now we ride on board with Schumacher now, as he approaches a 40 Ford. I think that's of Moreno. As we have the back view there as also. We don't just have the camera on the air intake above the driver's head, but we also do have one
Right on the edge, pushing it to the limit all the time.
on the back as well, and a very slow moving. I think that's Parnis's Ligier. He manages to get out the way though of Schumacher. There was a blue flag waved by the marshals. They've been working quite in the compacity, of course, way of like any other officials in any of the
Race order: Michael Schumacher, Nigel Mansell, Carl Wendlinger, Gerhard Berger.
Motorsport event. The back markers are really starting to slow Schumacher though, but he's now passed again the 40, almost brushing the gravel there, or with that curb.
He really loves these kind of conditions.
So that has slowed him down a bit, but he's near almost again a minute ahead, Schumacher over Nigel Mansell. As we reach 3/4 of this afternoon's race length of this afternoon's 1995 Marlboro Spanish Grand Prix here from Catalunya in Barcelona. And we've just heard from the race engineer of Michael Schumacher. In all of the confusion, he is about to pit for the second time this afternoon, and I think he'll go to the end of the race here because... Oh! And he has been slowed down by the other McLaren, of that being Finnish Mika Häkkinen. There's currently loads of blue flags from the marshals saying...
Race order: Michael Schumacher, Nigel Mansell, Carl Wendlinger, Gerhard Berger.
Let Schumacher pass, he is the faster driver. But he is going to come in for his final pit stop.
He must be shedding buckets of adrenaline in that car.
And as well as that, Mika Häkkinen has also just followed him just before that. And in he comes.
He's coming in for fuel and a fresh set of tyres. Superlative! Not a bad stop.
I think that was a second quicker. But some great team effort there from the Benetton mechanics. And they have really made those pit stops count there this afternoon. Schumacher is in a very good position here. And as we said at the top of the programme earlier on, this time last year, he was racing alongside Damon Hill, who went on to win the last year's Grand Prix here. Schumacher's been slowed down and there is another blue flag. That's for Martin Brundle to let Schumacher past.
Race order. Michael Schumacher, Nigel Mansell, Carl Venringer, Gerhard Berger.
I think Brundle must be struggling with his tyres, hence why he was going that slow. But I don't think he must have realised that Schumacher was that far ahead of him, or that coming that close towards him. And Berger, as I've said before, Damon Hill is in 5th, and Rubens Barrichello is currently in 6th place and holding on to an essential or valuable point for the total Jordan Peugeot team in this afternoon's race. But this has been another shock result here. And surprisingly, against all odds, we never thought that in the world of this game, we would see the former 1992 world champion, Nigel Mansell, in 2nd place and holding on to quite a very special final time on the podium in his Formula One career. But if you thought that was bonkers enough, just seeing Austrians Carl Wendiger, who's been lapped, as well as Berger Barrichello, who's now actually just overtaken Damon Hill, and now it's... He's taken 5th place. This will be a huge result for the Sauber team.
Michael Schumacher, Nigel Mansell, Carl Venringer, Gerhard Berger.
And it's crazy to think that 2 Austrian drivers are currently 3rd and 4th so far in the race classification as of currently. We can actually tell you that Venliger, after a string of multiple retirements, this has been, I think,
the sun is out and the weather is fine.
a barnstorming performance from the Austrian here. And we do know that we can also give you an update that even though that Carl Wendiger will possibly might be making a move to be replaced by newcomer Frenchman driver Jean-Christophe Bouillon, it would be quite amazing if Wendiger can hold on to this priceless third place.
It's not enough to be lucky. You've got to be good. And he is that.
For the Sauber Ford team, and the owner himself, Peter Sauber, would be overjoyed with this result. Because this certainly has been the best result from the Swiss constructor in all of their years that they have been competing in Formula One.
Schumacher, Nigel Mansell, Carl Wendlinger, Rubens Barrichello.
And Rubens Barrichello has now moved up to 4th place in his Jordan Peugeot. He must have overtaken Berger. And Yukio Katayama now is unbelievably in 6th place in his Tyrrell Yamaha. As Schumacher is about to approach the final quarter of this afternoon's Spanish Grand Prix, as the McLaren there, I think that's of Hakkinen, and the footwork of Gianni Morbidelli go into the pits. And that's past Luca Badoa's Minardi once more. And despite the hold-up, I don't know why the back markers seem to be driving very slowly, making it hard for Schumacher to stay out in front of Mansell. And it goes down to another second, now to 16 seconds. But Schumacher is still doing enough to maintain a 17-second gap to Nigel Mansell, while Carl Wendlinger has already been lapped. And it's incredible that Schumacher has nearly lapped the entire field, as Damon Hill did a few weeks ago in San Marino.
Michael Schumacher, Nigel Mansell, Carl Wendlinger, Rubens Barrichello.
And there's contact. That's Johnny Herbert. I think he made contact with that Martin Brundle's Ligier, I think. I don't know what on earth he was doing. He tried to overtake him. I think Brundle must have not noticed a blue flag waving at him from the marshals just behind the barriers. There surely must have been damage there.
On the edge, pushing it to the limit all the time.
But unbelievably, we've now just seen Damon Hill has managed to catch up. And I hope that he could try and overtake Yukio Katayama, as he unbelievably now moves to 5th place. The gap grows again to 14 seconds to Schumacher over Mansell, as this is lap 52 out of 65 of this afternoon's Spanish Grand Prix.
Race order: Michael Schumacher, Nigel Mansell, Carl Wendlinger, Rubens Barrichello.
Well, I know that most drivers were possibly attempting a two-stop race here.
It's not enough to be lucky. You've got to be good. And he is that.
But Schumacher wants to try and maintain a gap as much as possible so that he doesn't lose this vital first place for Benetton. It feels like we're seeing the old magic again from Nigel Mansell, though, in his McLaren Mercedes. And how on earth is he driving the way he is? Especially from the world of this game, as it's very different to what happened in real life. What I think we have been told by our producers from the race engineer of Michael Schumacher. He's been told to try and look after his tyres, because as you can see,
Race order. Michael Schumacher, Nigel Mansell, Carl Wendlinger, Ukyo Katayama.
And unbelievably, Yukio Katayama's now moved up to 4th place in his Tyrrell Yamaha, with 3 points at the moment.
Buckets of adrenaline in that car.
Other drivers look like they are pitting though. And the crazy thing about this game is when the tyre wear happens, it happens almost immediately, and sometimes as soon as the car would snap and spin out, that would normally be a sign that they're not completely warm, but when they're about over half worn, about 50%, we've had that especially from the times when we have had practice races way before we started this series, right at the beginning of the year. It would be quite the risk to bring him in. But as long as he can do a quick pit stop, he has definitely got much more pace than Mansell. As once again he storms past Gerhard Berger's Ferrari as we approach the final 10 laps of this afternoon's 1995 Marlboro Spanish Grand Prix here from...
This young man really is a superlative driver. Race order. Michael Schumacher, Nigel Mansell, Carl Wendlinger, Ukyo Katayama.
From the Circuit De Catalunya here in Barcelona. Schumacher, like I said, has started lap 55 out of 65. And then the unlikeliest of events, we have just been told he is going to be pitting. It might be an audacious call from the Benetton Renault team, but as long as he can have a good pit stop to change his tyres, he'll be on fresh tyres till the end of this race. He's still got enough pace to keep up with Mansell's McLaren.
He'll be very aware that races can be won or lost in the pit lane. And he's off again. That's down a position. And he's gained a lot of time there.
Well, they were nearly completely shot there, surprisingly. But I think that was a good call there. He's now on fresh tyres to the end of this race. And now he can catch up with Nigel Mansell with the last 9 laps of this afternoon's Grand Prix. That is, he'll need to try and get past these back markers as quickly as possible. Can we see him do it? He's under 5 seconds to Nigel Mansell in the McLaren Mercedes. Schumacher is literally flooring the accelerator pedal now through these corners. Past John Lacey. Well, that is Gerhard Berger in the Ferrari, sorry. That must have been Lacey earlier on. Herbert's just pitted now. And that being Schumacher's teammate. I don't know if Mansell has enough longevity in his tyres. I know he's 12 seconds ahead, but if he were to pin the next few laps, he will sadly miss out on a podium. And he's driven so well this afternoon, he deserves another podium here in what is his last start in Formula One history and in his career.
And he's gained a lot of time there. Race order: Nigel Mansell, Michael Schumacher, Karl Wendlinger, Ukyo Katayama.
He's now down to 9.989 seconds with 7 laps to go.
He's closing the gap.
As you would famously say, Murray, catching is one thing, but passing is quite another.
These kind of conditions. He's definitely gaining.
But we have had one incredible race here this afternoon here at Catalunya in Barcelona. I think this will be a race, even though it's only the 4th out of 17 rounds. Oh, goodness, and I didn't realise he was going to pit there. I think that was Martin Brundle in his Ligier.
He's losing ground.
Only slightly, but he's now down to 8 seconds. With only 6 laps remaining of this 1995 Marlboro Spanish Grand Prix. I think we're...
Nigel Mansell, Michael Schumacher, Karl Wendlinger, Ukyo Katayama.
We're certainly heading towards a thrilling end to this afternoon's Grand Prix here. And unbelievably, thanks to this game, We certainly did not expect this result. By far at all, really. It was just completely...
He's closing the gap.
As I know that you haven't mentioned there, Murray, but the beauty of this game is that it can be totally unpredictable in this series.
These kind of conditions.
No two races are ever the same here on Grand Prix Formula 1, and he's now down to 5 seconds.
And he's gained a lot of time there.
As Schumacher and Nigel Mansell have both got 5 laps left of this afternoon's Spanish Grand Prix. I think Schumacher could just do enough to overtake Mansell.
He's definitely gaining.
He most certainly is, and it's now down to over 3 seconds. And I think that could be his McLaren Mercedes just coming up in the distance right now. We have had absolutely everything happen, and some of the most unlikeliest of situations happen this afternoon here on Grand Prix Formula 1.
He's closing the gap. Race order. Nigel Mansell. Michael Schumacher. Carl Wendlinger. Ukyo Katayama.
And we're so thankful as of recording this every step of the way. This will be a race. Oh! Schumacher goes slightly wide. But he just keeps it off from away from the gravel.
This young man really is a superlative driver.
Well, as I've said before, as Johnny Herbert comes out of the pits from his last pit stop, it's crazy to think that the current world champion, Michael Schumacher, racing along former world champion Nigel Mansell from 1992. We certainly did not see this happen. As you could go back to when Michael Schumacher first started racing in Formula 1. He has been with Benetton since 1992. And I think he's been caught up by a back marker there, Nigel Mansell, as he passes a 40.
He's definitely gaining.
Well, what a thrilling end to this afternoon's Grand Prix. Schumacher has only got a few laps to see if he can snatch that win from Nigel Mansell.
It's not enough to be lucky.
Herbert pits again, unbelievably.
Race order. Nigel Mansell. Michael Schumacher. Carl Wendlinger. Ukyo Katayama.
3 laps remaining of this afternoon's 1995 Spanish Grand Prix, and it looks like he's nearly making contact with his teammate Mika Hakkinen. He gets past him, and now it's just Mansell, just under a second now. Mansell must be really feeling the pressure now on the young German driver, that being Michael Schumacher. What a battle this has been. And I feel like we are seeing the birth of a new team rivalry of both Benetton and McLaren Mercedes. Honestly, Murray, this has been such a spectacle to watch this afternoon, and I am so happy that... Here he goes! Michael Schumacher has got him!
Only 2 more laps to go.
Michael Schumacher, with 2 laps remaining in the penultimate lap of this afternoon's Spanish Grand Prix, regains the lead.
Race order. Michael Schumacher.
Oh!
Olivier Panis.
Well, I don't know if that was he just overtook him there, Murray. But now Olivier Panis is in the points now for Ligier. In all of the confusion, oh goodness. Schumacher is really... I feel like the tyres are almost starting to go already. There is nothing in it between these two here. What a battle we are seeing as we come to the final lap of this afternoon's 1995 Spanish Grand Prix here from the Circuit De Catalunya in Barcelona. This could be one of the tightest finishes we've had so far of this year's championship. Michael Schumacher for Benetton Renault starts his final lap.
And it's the last lap of the race.
Has he got anything left? He's now managed to pull out a gap. Just coming up to 2 seconds. I think the tyres might just hold off here. They might just hold on. They have been almost...
This young man really is a superlative driver.
They've almost been burnt to shreds here. But what an unbelievable drive from the German himself. Starting from unbelievably 10th on the grid. And an incredible 65 laps. And one of the most thrilling ends to any Grand Prix race I've yet to see this series. Michael Schumacher has waited 3 long races to finally win his first
Nigel Mansell, Carl Wendlinger, Olivier Panis.
Grand Prix of this year, and as he comes round the final corner, Michael Schumacher for Benetton Renault wins the 1995 Marlboro Spanish Grand Prix!
And there is the checkered flag. It's a win for Michael Schumacher. That's a great result for the Benetton team.
It most certainly is, Murray, and the team owner Flavio Briatore will be overjoyed with this result. Germany's Michael Schumacher in his Benetton Renault after missing out on the points and once again going back to his first podium finish, finishing 3rd in Brazil. He's finally won his first Grand Prix victory of this year's Reimagined 1995 FIA Formula 1 World Championship, and has once again to clarify, he wins the 1995 Marlboro Spanish Grand Prix here from Catalunya in Barcelona. Well, there you go, everybody. That concludes an unbelievable and quite incredible and exciting edition of course, the fourth round of the Reimagined 1995 FIA Formula 1 World Championship with the 1995 Marlboro Spanish Grand Prix here from the Circuit de Catalunya in Barcelona, Spain. And an unbelievable, impressive performance and the first race victory for Germany's Michael Schumacher for Benetton Renault. And what an unbelievable battle that we saw with him. And even though that was his last race as of this year, and only his second of 1995 this particular season, an unbelievable, impressive second place from Nigel Mansell in the McLaren Mercedes. I mean, I still can't believe that actually happened just through the way that the game has been programmed and everything. And if you thought that was even bonkers, Austrian Karl Wendlinger for the Sauber Ford team, the Red Bull Sauber Ford team, takes a very impressive third place on the podium, and that is absolutely insane. I can't believe that he actually managed to finish. That's actually the first time in actually this season we've seen a podium finish from the Sauber team, and that did actually unbelievably happen, but of course his teammate, that being Germany's Heinz-Harald Frentzen, got it not until later on of this particular season, until the Italian Grand Prix, finishing in the same position. But an unbelievable performance there from the Austrian himself there. And of course, with that being said, let's quickly get to the full race classification after 65 laps of this afternoon's Spanish Grand Prix here from Catalunya and Barcelona, Spain. And once again, just to remind you, Michael Schumacher wins his first race victory of this year's Reimagined 1995 FIA Formula 1 World Championship and wins this afternoon's Spanish Grand Prix with a total race time of 1 hour, 41 minutes and 3 seconds, 7.776 hundredths of a second. Nigel Mansell unbelievably had an amazing catch-up towards the end, and I know that if you did actually see from earlier on why the loads of back markers were so slow going around the corners, I feel like they were struggling with their tyre wear. That's why Michael Schumacher was really put under pressure to try and hold him off towards the end. But this has been the closest finish we've had so far this series, and he managed to just finish just behind by 5.5 of course 4 seconds, 1/4 hundredths of a second, sorry there. And Karl Wendlinger finishes once again second in the a third in the Sauber Ford. Once again, going back to Nigel Mansell, another impressive podium finish there. And even though that was his final race, he has definitely retired out in style with one final podium finish in his career. I mean, that is absolutely astonishing to see him, even though he was not as physically fit as he would like to have been. I think he literally put his whole body through almost hell, I think, actually, just to get that result. But he also timed it perfectly from other drivers with their pit stops. So once again, Karl Wendlinger finishes again in third place, behind by 1 lap, as well as an unbelievable, impressive performance from the Frenchman Olivier Panis in the Ligier Mugen Honda, who also finished behind, also by 1 lap. And an unbelievable, impressive points finish again from the Japanese driver Yukio Katayama, who also finished behind by 1 lap, as well as Brazilians Rubens Barrichello, who holds on for one singular point for the total Jordan Peugeot team. and sadly just missing out on the points, but a great performance there from the British driver of Damon Hill in the Williams Renault, just missing out on points, finishing in 7th place. And then Taki Inoue finishes in 8th for the Footwork Hart team, behind by 2 laps. And also fellow Austrian driver for Ferrari, that being Gerhard Berger, finishes in 9th, but also behind by 2 laps. And unbelievably, fellow also Frenchman, of course, and I'm not saying about Jean Alesi, of course, his Ferrari teammate. I'm talking about Bertrand Gachot. He manages to finish in the 10th place and for the Pacific Ford team, and even though he was behind by 4 laps, he manages to get into the top 10. As you did actually see when earlier on, going into the final lap, when Michael Schumacher was about to cross the line, it was incredible to actually see that drivers were actually taking pit stops on the final lap. And I mean, it felt like that the game was completely, it was beyond its limits. Actually, I felt like it literally was broken, but the race still went ahead anyway. The game didn't crash or anything, thank goodness. And especially from the race that we had from earlier on this afternoon, I mean, that was definitely one that we could look back upon, and we are so thankful and so grateful to have caught it all for you watching here on, once again, Jackpot, Button Lewis, of course, too, and Jackpot, Button Lewis Sport Productions. And to remind you also, despite having a good start, and even though he did an amazing qualifying finish, starting in 3rd place, but unfortunately he dropped out of the points due to mistiming his pit stop. David Coulthard for Williams Renault gets the fastest lap time of 1 minute, from the race, of 1 minute again, 1 minute 28 seconds, 0.715 hundredths of a second. Well, with that, of course, rounding off another, of course, round of this year's 1995 Reimagined FIA Formula 1 World Championship, that has also, once again, really mixed it up again at the Drivers' and also Constructors' Championship point tables so far. And as we would just like to clarify that right now, after that all-important and very impressive race victory there from Germany's Michael Schumacher for Benetton Renault, that now we can clarify that in the Drivers' Championship he is now level on points with Damon Hill, and even though he didn't get into the points on this particular race, he is now level on points along with his former championship rival from last year. And once again, being the current world champion, also he is now on equal terms with his, of course, his championship rival for Williams Renault. And also with that being said, even though he didn't finish in the points as of this afternoon, Johnny Herbert, that being Benetton's, of course, Michael Schumacher's Benetton Renault teammate, stays in 3rd place with 13 points. Gerhard Berger also maintains 4th place, and he keeps, because since he finished in 9th and out of the points, he still stays in where he is at the moment with 12 points. But unbelievably, in 5th place, now tied with, unbelievably, Nigel Mansell after the impressive 2nd place on the podium there from him, from initially getting 4 points initially before the start of this afternoon's race. He is now tied with the Williams Renault driver of Scotsman David Coulthard. And also, even though he didn't race, of course, for this weekend, once again, his McLaren teammate for Nigel Mansell, Mark Blundell, is still also just a point behind, also currently in 7th place at the moment with 9 points. 8th is Rubens Barrichello as he extends his lead just by 1 singular point with 6 at the moment. And unbelievably, because of the impressive podium finish there from, of course, Austrians Karl Wendlinger, he now moves up to 9th place after only having 1 point, but after getting 4 from that 3rd place on the podium as of in today's race, he moves up to 9th place. And for the first time ever, also as we mentioned from earlier on. Olivier Panis managed to get into the points, finishing an impressive 4th and getting 3 points. He currently holds on to 10th place in the Drivers' Championship. And just out of the points, Yukio Katayama also got an additional point also, so he's now tied out of the, of course, the top 10 and 11. And John Alesi is also tied with 2 points, along with Taki Inoue, of course, for the Footwork Art team. And still in 14th also is Heinthout Frentzen, Carl Wendiger's Sauber Ford teammate, still with 1 singular point. So it's crazy to think that we've had quite a few little changes following the outcome of this particular race. And once again, that covering the drivers. Let's have a quick look at the Constructors' Championship table at the moment. And that now means that Benetton Renault, after that all-important victory from Michael Schumacher, now have a extensive lead in the the Constructors' Championship with 23 points. And now they are currently leading by 4 over an impressive, of course, for McLaren Mercedes, moving now above Williams Renault as they now take 2nd place and have 19 points at the moment in the on the table so far. Once again, as I said, Williams Renault dropped down now to 3rd place with 14 points, and they're also currently tied with Ferrari, also on the same amount of points. Following both teams didn't finish in the points from this afternoon's Grand Prix, while Jordan Peugeot are still in 5th place, and they also are tied now unbelievably with Sauber Ford following the impressive 3rd place finish there from Carl Wendiger, and they both have 6 points at the moment. And now for the first time in 7th place, Ligier Mugen Honda get their first points on the championship this year, and they are also currently tied with Tyrrell Yamaha also with also 3 points. And in 9th place, still on 2 points at the moment, is still Footwork Art, and they are still right at the bottom of this year's Constructors' Championship table at the moment. Well, there we go, everybody. That concludes this very, of course, eventful and make that, of course, hot and sweltering edition, of course, of Grand Prix Formula 1. And let me tell you, I know this has only been the 4th race of the championship so far, but this has been the race of the championship. Honestly, from what we saw there with Michael Schumacher, coming back after nearly being a minute down after pitting, of course, while David Coulthard took an early lead, and then him pitting later on in the race, he mistimed his pit stop to then a hard and incredible, of course, I mean, literally, I have never seen the young German driver himself actually push himself that hard to, of course, especially in the warm conditions, and he almost pulled off an Ayrton Senna. Like, you know, I wouldn't be surprised if he nearly could have passed out because of how much energy and stamina he actually had to go through just to pull off that incredible race victory. But once again, I know that it's such a shame to now say, as we said at the top of the programme, this will be the final race of Nigel Mansell's Formula 1 career, but what a way to do it in style. I know, as I've said before, in real life it never happened, but to see that in this game is just unbelievable, and I can't believe that to see him on the podium for one final time in his Formula 1 career, it's just absolutely incredible. It's just amazing to see that at the age he is, and you know, for being a former world champion, from what we saw, that battle with him and Michael early towards the end of the race, it just goes to show that we've seen, of course, for many times over the past few years in the world of this sport, we've always seen when former champions and current world champions come to, of course, face each other on certain races. And we've seen a prime example with this race afternoon, and I honestly, we honestly have been treated to something we will certainly never forget. And on behalf of myself and from everyone from the team on Grand Prix Formula 1, we would like to wish a happy retirement to Nigel Mansell, and we hope that in the future he'll go on to do more amazing, of course, incredible anything to do within the motorsport world. We could maybe even see him, dare I say it, possibly go to the British Touring Car Championship, dare I say it, within a few years. But you never know, of course, in this particular sport. And I know that because it's so funny, actually, that because from next year, I've also heard that the rally driver of Colin McRae has also been offered a drive, not to drive in particularly for the Jordan team, but to be given a test drive just to see what it's like to drive, of course, a Formula 1 car. Then, too, he's well known for driving a Subaru Impreza rally car. And also, with that being said as well, I mean, another impressive, of course, performance there. Once again, I'm sure Peter Sauber, the owner of the Red Bull Sauber Ford team, will be overjoyed with the first podium for his team in the, of course, the dark navy and, of course, purple cars of his team from Switzerland. And with also that being said, on the topic of the country of Switzerland, I know that outside of the Jackpot button sports universe, we would also like to acknowledge that later on this evening we will be, of course, I will be reacting to the grand final of this year's Eurovision Song Contest live from St. Jakobsschal in, once again, Basel in Switzerland. And don't forget that very, very soon here on my official YouTube channel, I will be also reacting to see how the British entry, and of course more specifically for the United Kingdom, of country pop band of Remember Monday with their song What the Hell Just Happened, and seeing how they can get on competing against the rest of 26, but there are 26 countries in total in the grand final, and only one of them can walk away with that famous glass microphone trophy. But you'll find out from later on this evening on highlights of that. Of course, I've been trying to avoid any spoilers. I've been going in blind, and I've done enough. I've done well to actually avoid that as of so far. And of course, if that particular race, going back to the Spanish Grand Prix, has anything to go by, you won't have to wait much longer, because in a few weeks' time we'll be heading to round 5 of the 1995 reimagined FIA Formula 1 World Championship, as we stay once again in, of course, Europe, and we head to the picturesque Monaco in Monte Carlo for the Monaco Grand Prix. Of course, I know that is the race that every, not just Formula 1 fan, likes to see, but also it is the most prestigious, and as described also by, of course, Murray Walker, it is the jewel in the crown of Formula 1 for any driver to win that, as being of one of the most prestigious races on the Grand Prix calendar. And of course, we will be following that all through the way from later on as of this month in May, and of course, more specifically, we will be, of course, covering that within the next few weeks, and more specifically on the date, as just to remind you all, as we can quickly get it up here, and that will be happening towards the end of this month on the 28th of May. Well, with that being said, thank you very much for watching this edition of Grand Prix Formula 1. Once again, and a very impressive first race victory for Germany's Michael Schumacher for the Benetton Renault team. They now take the lead also in the Constructors' Championship, and now he's also level on points with his championship rival of Damon Hill, and this could be a very interesting turning point in the championship as we go to one of the most challenging races of the calendar so far. It could be a very exciting race in prospect when we head to, of course, the harbour of Monaco in Monte Carlo for that particular race. And of course, as we had there right at the beginning of the series with these unexpected results, this one in particular has also been another one of those, of course, moments. And as bonkers as it sounds, and of course, as much as it's very different from the truth and to the real life events, of course, and results of the real life season, I'm just, of course, letting it roll, and just to title, of course, like this race with the of course the Eurovision entry for the United Kingdom, it definitely feels like what the hell just happened with this particular race. But once again, we all, of course, want to embrace it, and I hope that from your perspective, watching at home, you've enjoyed it nevertheless. So with that being said, it's time for us to bid a fond, of course, adios from, of course, the Circuit de Catalunya here in Barcelona, Spain, for another edition of Grand Prix Formula 1. And as always, we'll be back in a few weeks' time for round 5 of the 1995 reimagined FIA Formula 1 World Championship with the 1995 Monaco Grand Prix from Monte Carlo. Until then, thanks very much for watching, and we'll see you in a few weeks' time for the next round of the 1995 reimagined F1 season. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.